Welcome to the Directing Animation Livecast with Scott Weiser, who has gone from a studio of one to directing at Space Station Animation to supervising at Steamroller Animation, continuously developing over 15 feature film pitches on a quest to master the art of making deeply meaningful animated films.
Okay, our guest today is Mike Mattesi, and we, again, usually the show is live, but today we're at the Salt Lake Animation Expo, which is soon going to be renamed as the Sketch to Screen Summit. Wow. And their catchphrase is actually pretty clever. It's sketch to screen and everything in between. So, yeah, it's really nice. So, yeah, they'll be using both names simultaneously for the next 3 months, but then it will be the Sketch to Screen Summit, which will be great. A bit about your background. You know, like I was talking to you about before the show, I've seen your books around CTNX. I've seen your books on the internet. And, you know, I kind of thought of this is a teacher of dynamic life drawing, right? And then I look at your background, and you have this vast background in animation. You worked on The Lion King. You've worked for Hasbro, Marvel Comics, Microsoft, Electronic Arts, all sorts of companies, DreamWorks, PDI. You know, you have that experience in the industry. And so not only are you teaching, you know, figure drawing, but you're teaching figure drawing in the way that you would need to learn it to use it in your day-to-day as an animator or a concept artist or whatever on the movies. Is there anything else you'd like to add about your background that you feel is important?
Oh my God, I'm not sure where to start with all that. Let me see if I can grab this. Yeah, I think what makes me unique, I'd like to think what makes me unique is I've had every job you can think of, really, across many different genres of entertainment, from comics. Ironically, I'd say comics is my least. I've done a little bit of comic book work. Right. I've done some animation work, as you mentioned. I've taught at all those studios. But I've been also mostly in games, right? And it's kind of weird because most people think of me mostly in animation, I think because of the philosophy of the books. But job-wise, I've been in games for a very long time, mostly as an art director, sometimes as a creative director. But I've also been an entrepreneur, right? It's like I've had a couple of my own businesses, and that's like a whole other mindset. You know, it's other things to think about. A lot of artists don't think about business, right? So I've had to think about that side and marketing and everything that goes along with that. Hiring and firing people, like that's hard also.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, it's very hard, you know, going through all of that. And then the teaching side, and you know, and writing the books, publishing books, you know. So it's been, you know, as my talk was here yesterday, it's been a crazy roller coaster ride of a career, you know. Just, and I've had my good times and really bad times, you know, and getting through the hills and valleys, and just surviving through all of it, you know.
And yours seems like a career that possibly is dynamic because you had this initial vision of what your career is going to be, and then it's become something else.
Yeah, it's become many different things.
Yeah.
It started, I went to school for comics. And Will Eisner is a teacher. I love saying that because I was really lucky. Yeah, like, you know, there's a Will Eisner Award.
Yeah.
You know, it didn't go that way. I came really close, and then I got into Disney. All of a sudden, I'm in animation. I never intended that. I never thought of that as a kid. That wasn't my childhood dream, like many animators. You know, instead, all of a sudden, I'm working at Disney Animation. I'm on Lion King, as you said, you know. I loved video games. I played video games as a kid. I was 7 or 8 years old when like the Atari 2600 came out. I'm of that generation. I was primed for that. I was made for games, right? All of a sudden, I'm in the game industry. I leave animation. I'm in games. You know, I started teaching. I love teaching. It's something I did even when I was in college. Next thing I know is I'm teaching a lot. I create a theory. I'm too tired of teaching. I write a book. Now there's these books, you know. So it's kind of weird how they kind of just bleed into one another. And sometimes they're purposeful. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes the purposeful ones work. Sometimes they crash and burn drastically. Sometimes things come out of left field and they work really well. And sometimes they come out of left field and they're no good. Or sometimes I ignored it and I shouldn't have and it was good. So I don't know if I made the right choices, the right or wrong choices, but I made choices and here I am, you know, and I've set goals. I've tried to get them. Again, sometimes they work, sometimes they don't. Either way, this is where we are today. You know, now I've returned to teaching full time at, you know, drawingforce.com. And, we're 6 books in. We're writing our 7th book. I know what the 8th one's going to be also. So I know there's more books coming. Did I ever think there's going to be more than one book? No. Did I ever think I would get published? No. Like I never thought any of that was going to happen. But here we are, so go figure, So I've had different kinds of motivators in my life. There's been the motivation of fear. There's been a motivation of money, motivation of passion and excitement, motivation of exhaustion. Right? There's all different things in different periods of my life that have made me move forward. Some of them probably healthier than others. Yeah. But something always driving me forward. And ironically, things are going really well right now. So I'm trying to figure out what that new motivator is. Is it new stuff on the website, right? Which we are working on right now. Actually, I'm going to try to get 5 new courses done by the end of this year. Wow. Yeah, so we have a lot of work ahead of us, and that's exciting. I needed something new. I think through COVID, we're kind of all like coasting through COVID. We were really busy at drawingforce.com, like teaching. We just got this huge influx, as I'm sure all like online businesses did. But I just need like something new. And I like the lottery ticket. So the lottery ticket for me has always been, and I almost hate putting this out here because then it's good because maybe it'll make it more real and have to like do it. But I have a film script that I wrote many years ago, and I've gone through it. I think it's on its 25th version. Like I've massaged the heck out of it, and I'd love to do an animatic of it, or I'd love to do a comic book of it, at some point. And there's been some great speakers here that have actually been motivating me. I'm like, oh yeah, you're right. I should just go do this and get this thing done and do it this way, right? So that's my lottery ticket. My lottery ticket is, it's a live action sci-fi film, and it's like, that's the thing, like in the background behind all the work that's going on at drawingforce.com, can I get this thing done? Or will it die? Will it someday not be my motivation? Am I going to wait it out too long and that'll fizzle, right? That happens, right? Like things die and other things come up. So I don't know, we'll see. We'll see where that all goes.
Yeah. I have a couple thoughts as I listen to you. So one thing is the motivation. You talked about stress not being the best motivator. And I've been realizing that, as I've been reducing my amount of stress with these different skills I've been learning, I'm like, well, when the stress is gone, how am I going to keep going? Luckily there is something at the other side of that issue. So that's exciting. And then, you talked about being inspired by people here at the expo. That's very interesting. It's a fascinating dynamic where, I had some rough stuff happen yesterday, but then I looked around the expo and I thought a lot of these people would love to be in the job that I have, be a supervising animator and also animating at the same time on a different project that's really high quality, right? And pitching projects and all that stuff. So, and then at the same time, people would love to be able to sell the kinds of books you sell and to teach the kinds of courses you teach and all that stuff. But then you go and you listen to a speaker and you're like, this is motivating to me, And that's the great thing about these events is, nobody has it all figured out, right? But we all come together and something awesome happens. So
yeah, I think the one of the jobs I think of these conventions is to motivate, right? That's really what people come to conventions for. Yeah. You might be coming to look at your, have someone look at your portfolio. You want to get that advice to help guide you, to motivate you, to keep going forward, to dispel your questions and concerns, right? To try to get you to the next place, So, I had a conversation with some of the other guests here yesterday, and it was more about like getting past the barrier of the perfection of, let's say, making a film, right? You're talking about $200 million budgets. But I know if I wanted to shoot a film, I can pull my phone out of my pocket and we can shoot it right now, right? The audio doesn't have to be great. The video doesn't have to be great, but at least you're making something. And you have the vehicle now to put it on YouTube, right? I can do Kickstarters. I can put it on Instagram. I can do whatever I want with it, right? And then at least you're making, right? You're doing, and through that, you learn. The best way to learn is just do. And all on its own, it will get better because you'll be like, that wasn't that good, right? I need to go buy a light, right? So then you go buy a light and you're like, this camera's not that great, and that's the better motivator than the fear thing I was talking about and stress. It's like your curiosity, your passion, your desire to become better, right? Mm-hmm. That's an amazing motivator. And, like in school, I was afraid for a good part of that because my big fear was not getting a job coming out of school. But I found figure drawing. So it kind of mixed with that. I had this passion of I want to become the best drawer I can possibly become coming out of the school. And oh my God, I hope I can get a job when I leave here. Right. Yeah. So that was my blend, I guess anyway, what I'm getting at is the lesson that I'm getting from this convention, right, from Slacks, is don't let anything stop you. Do it on the cheap, right? Just do it. Just go do whatever that thing is. I was talking to Julian. He was the director of Gruff. So check out Gruff on YouTube. I'm plugging Gruff. Yeah, he really motivated me. He's a young guy, right? And he did this like stop motion-y kind of puppeted, really animated film that's got, I think, like over 4 million views on it right now in just like a month. And he did it. He did it by himself, and it's amazing. The irony is, like, I was talking to him last night, and the whole point was I was saying, hey, I used to live in LA, and I've been on the other side of the curtain, right? I've been in big studio production, but not in live action. And I used to live on Barham Boulevard, which is right where Warner Brothers is, and Universal. It's like right there in between all the big studios. I'm like, please just let me in and let me make my live action movie, or let me become a director. I just want to get into live action somehow, So it's funny because you live in LA with these dreams, and the stuff's right there, but it's on the other side. So it might as well be on the other side of the planet, right? That's what it feels like. And he was saying, like, the heck with that. Just go do it. Like, do your own thing. It doesn't have to be the $200 million thing. And I'm like, I know that. I teach that. Yeah. You're right. I talk about the same thing. Why am I not listening to my own advice here, right? Like, I can go make a movie. I can go make a short. I can do an animatic, right? I can go make the comic book. So now the interesting thing that'll happen is, do I do it? Right? So I kind of watch myself. I'm very self-aware, and I see I'm not doing it. Why am I not doing it? Maybe I don't care as much as I thought I did. This is kind of a delusional dream versus a real one, right? That's real. That happens. Yes. That happens. Some people always have these dreams of wanting to get a job, and then sometimes you actually get the job. You're like, God, I hate this job. This isn't what I thought this job was. Yeah. I've been there. I've done that too, I was, I don't know if you know who Dennis Muren is, but Dennis Muren was like, one of the original guys that did visual effects for Star Wars, right? But my young daughter got into the Mill Valley Film Festival at like 14, right, in Mill Valley in North Bay. And Dennis Muren was at the red carpet, right, so at this party. And so I got to talk to him. Right? I broke, summoned up the courage. I'm like, oh my God, it's Dennis Muren. I can't believe it, So I'm like, I got to figure out what I'm going to go up to him with. And I go up to him, I start talking to him, and I was like, I just am so inspired by what you've done in your career. And he's like, what are you up to? And I was like, well, I teach and I've been in games. I told him my career. He's like, and I said, I really want to make films. Like, I want to get into films. He's like, well, how many films you've done? I'm like, none. He's like, well, then how do you know if you even want to do it? I was like, you're right. I don't really know. Maybe I won't like it. I can picture myself doing it. I can picture myself directing, I've taken acting too, so I know what that facet is. And teaching is kind of like directing in the sense of like communication and getting people motivated to go in a direction. Yeah. But he's right. He's like, go make whatever, use your phone. And it's the same thing that Julian get through with me yesterday, basically, right? Yeah. I was like, I left that night also with like, I was really motivated. Did I do it though? I didn't do it. Yeah. I had Dennis Muren telling me to do it, right? It's like, who do I need to tell me? Do I need George Lucas to walk up to me? You see what I mean? To tell me to do it? And even that might not be enough. And if it isn't, then it's a lie. Yeah. I don't really want to do it. And I don't know, guys. I'm telling you guys out there, I don't know. Maybe I don't want to do it. Maybe you're going to see, I'm going to be able to put on Instagram, hey, guess what? My film's getting made in 3 years. I have no idea. I don't know. I don't have an answer to that right now. I really don't know. I'm torn because I'm so magnetized to drawingforce.com, and I love pushing that forward. I love teaching. That always takes precedence, and I don't think I let enough of my other self in to see if I love it enough to do it. But if I did, I know me, I would carve out that time too, right? So that's what I have to watch.
Yeah, I can speak to that a little bit. So we have a guest who's been on the show, good friend of mine, Chris Oatley, who was a Disney character designer. And, he thought that was his dream. And then he's like, hey, my next goal is to be a director. So they said, okay, to be a director, you need to start storyboarding. So he starts to learn storyboarding, and he would sit down and he couldn't get himself to do it. Wow. He could just not get himself to do it. but he could draw like a concept for it and make a poster and like do all the things on the periphery. And so he presents this thing. They're like, well, where's your storyboarding? Like, we need to see that you can storyboard. And he's just like, I can't do that. Well, he was at a CTNX and he's giving feedback to all these people getting his portfolio reviews. And he realized my parents were teachers and I thought I would never go into teaching because that was their thing, but that's what I needed to do. So he dropped it all and started Chris Oatley Academy, and he's one of the best educators I've ever seen in the world.
Oh, yeah, I think I know you.
Yeah. And his whole thing is like, I could spend all day studying about teaching and studying about how am I going to help my students have a breakthrough. I can't spend all my day storyboarding, right? And then on the same token, there's somebody that I was mentoring recently that said, well, how do you get started, right? And I just kind of listened for a bit, and this person had told me that there was already like people assembled and different people that this person wanted to work with. And I was like, well, you have started, like you just find that path of least resistance and go in. Yeah. But if it's a path of high resistance, then it's like, well, maybe that isn't your way in. Right. Maybe it is drawingforce.com and you'll find somebody who is such a talented story artist and doesn't know what story to draw. Well, here you go, Yeah. And then you can then mentor that student, Yeah. And then maybe it becomes something different, but you're doing it through your passion. So that's just an idea. I don't know, just spitballing here, but
yeah. It's a, when I think about this subject, I think of Bruce Springsteen. Yeah. There's this, I don't know the exact quote, but he said something like, I embarrassingly get paid all of this money to do the thing that's actually easiest for me to do. Right? And for me, it's really easy to teach. Yeah. Like, I know how to describe things to people. I know how to use my language to be extremely specific, to tell them exactly what I'm looking for and what they're missing or what they need. Yeah. And I've been doing it for a long time, and I've perfected that craft of communication verbally and visually. And it's easy. I've been doing it forever. Yeah, okay. My days, I teach anywhere from 3 to 8 students sometimes a day, right, in mentorship. And the scary part is my days go by fast. I'm like, wow, a whole another week just went by. I'm in this meeting again with this student. Where'd the whole week go, right? So it works. But what's weird is me, I think I look for the friction, right? It's like I look for making it, yeah, it's like I look for making it hard. It's like there's some excitement in making that more difficult on myself. And yet I don't know if that's right, and that's like this weird sort of psychological dilemma that I literally go through. I'm like, well, I think I really want this, but it's a lot more challenging, but I like the challenge, but you do this and it's so easy and you do it just stick to your thing. But I think my human nature is not to do that. I'm looking to make it harder. So I admittedly, I pendulum back and forth between those two things, and I'm aware of that pendulum too, that I'm swinging. It's like I'm in flow right now. I'm going to do the thing I'm really good at. I guess it's that golden ticket thing again. Really, I'm coming back to. It's like I need this thing that's going to be really hard that I got to figure out, see if it's possible. A lot of the bigger things in my life have actually happened like that. I'm like, I'm going to try. Disney was one of those at that time, right? Like, can I go after this thing? So I don't know. It's always been a yin yang. I think there's always just like this yin yang going on.
I half wonder if having those friction moments and those things that are difficult will then give you new tools that will help your students. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's why there's that motivation. Mm-hmm. So if maybe you just kind of redirect that and you'd be like, this is my way of getting better at this other thing because I know I'm good at it. Well, I can always be better at it, right? And that those friction moments will, someday you may have a student that just struggles with everything, right? Mm-hmm. And it's only a struggle and you'll know, like, I know how to get you past this, right? Yeah. That's a possibility.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I did some portfolio reviews yesterday, and I'll be doing more today. You can see in the students, a lot of them are coming in trying to cover their bases. Uh-huh. Like, I just want to get a job. So my first question yesterday was always like, well, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, I'm thinking graphic novels, maybe some illustration work for children's books or covers. And I'm like, if this was 25 years ago, that might have been okay. But no more. Like, you've got to pick, because if you're the person who's doing okay at 3 things and somebody else is killing it on their graphic novel and they laser beam themselves on that project, theirs is going to be better than yours, right? Because they've isolated, right? Now, I'm not saying your whole life should be that. I'm saying experiment when you're young to find a path and then dig deep, right? I call it the floodlight laser beam, right? So the floodlight is you're going broad across many things, and the floodlight is you're picking one, right? So go through the experimentation, find something that you love, and dig deep, right, to get out there in that particular space. And it was really interesting in talking to them yesterday because they were aware, like, well, I really love this thing, but there's more jobs in this thing. So now you have this challenge of like practicality versus passion. Man, is that not a tough one, right? It's like, yeah, where do you go in there, right? Like, do you go after the practicality of this is a job? One girl wanted to do like 2D rigging, so that's not the one that everybody's looking for. I want to go to school to be a 2D rigger, right? Yeah. Like nobody, I was kind of surprised. I was like, oh, this is a new space. Let's talk about it, right? But she also loved character designs, and they were pretty good. But is she going to get into Disney with them? Probably not. I don't think they're that caliber, but they were pretty good. I could see her definitely, getting a job. But if you want that, do you go after that? Do you get yourself up to that quality bar? You have to, I think, love that thing to become great. And this is going to sound really negative, but not everyone wants to be great.
No.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay. Don't be great. Be good.
Yeah.
Get a job. Have your family. Like balance your life out. And then there's other people who are like, I want to be great. And they'll purposely have maybe family later. For instance, they'll sacrifice other things because of that drive and that motivation. And you'll need to figure that out yourself. Like what level of focus and dedication do you want to that craft? And different, I would say every craft doesn't determine different motivation levels, but you're not going to get into, AAA animation companies because you're just want to. You're kind of curious about it, right? Like you want it, right? You got to be if you're at a school, you got to be one of the best in your school, one of the best in your class, one of the best in the United States at that time to get in. That's just the truth of the matter, I mean, I was super A-type when I was in school. I said this yesterday. I was like, my goal, especially in senior years, I'm like, I'm going to be the best in the class, nothing underneath that. Like I knew who the other students were. And then as I started getting to that place, I was like, I have to be better than the teacher. I didn't get there, but it was my motivator. Yeah. It would drive me to like be as best as I can be, Now, a healthier version of me at 54 would tell you, be the best you can be. Yeah. Don't compare. Don't worry about the other people. But for me, that worked because I could see who those people were, Yeah. So some people don't work well under a competitive stance, right? But look at sports, right? Artists, ironically, don't usually have a competitive nature, right? It's not that aggressive, right? We're usually very compassionate with one another at these conventions. I can feel the empathy, right? Like people are so nice to each other and supportive. In sports, they're at each other's throats when they're working, and then they get off the field and like, hey, Joe, come over for beers, right? But when you're out there and you're doing it, you're like, I'm going to be the best I can be, so I'm going to be my best, but I'm competing. And the unfortunate truth of the matter is you are, there's only one job, and there might be when I tried to get into Disney, there were over 1,600 applicants. I was one of 16 chosen to get in there. I didn't know that, thank God. But that was the truth of the matter. Those are the numbers, right? That's how it is. So the only reason I got in there is because I attest that to me back in school going, I'm going to be the best in the school. I'm going to be the best in my class. I'm going to try to be better than the teacher. If I didn't have that drive and that motivator, I wouldn't be sitting here today, right? Awesome. So you just got to figure out what motivates you. It should be positive, right? It's not like you should be, I have to go take these people down. That wasn't my motivation, right? My motivation was I got to be as awesome as I can. I want to be the best in this class. You want to be better than me? Go for it. Like, be better. Let's have a healthy competition, right? That'd be great. And that's a healthy mindset. Let's play off of one another, right? To make each other as best as we can be, right? I think in some weird way that is a little bit of what, at an art standpoint, we do lose. But at the business level, they don't. I mean, Disney's trying to be better than DreamWorks, Pixar, and so on. They're trying to make the best movies they can make. They're aware of how each other are doing. They try to recruit the best talent. They're aggressively looking for that, right? So I didn't want to make this a talk about positive aggressiveness. But that's kind of it, and I'm not saying you have to be that all the time, but be aware. I want to leave it, I guess, on a high note of be aware of what motivates you.
Yeah.
I think that's really the message I want you to get here is be aware of what motivates you. If you have enough drive to motivate yourself and just be your best, sometimes you need the outside to motivate you. Sometimes you can do it internally, but be the best you can be, That's all you got. Why not?
Yeah, that's great. Yeah. Well, thank you for being on the show. I know you have a tight schedule and need to get back to your table and everything, but thank you for being on the livecast. Oh, yeah, exactly. So, until next time, I hope we all get a little wiser.
Thank you for watching the Directing Animation Livecast, hosted by Scott Weiser, audio version edited by Kira Horowitz, copyright Scott Weiser LLC 2024. Don't forget to subscribe and ring that notification bell.